Hey, welcome to the Explainer. Today, we're diving into a decision that can seriously make or break your app on AWS, and that's shared storage. We're going to compare two really powerful but totally different ways to do it. And trust me, picking the wrong one can lead to some major headaches like performance nightmares or even, yikes, data corruption. So here's how we're going to break it down. First, we'll talk about why shared storage is even a thing, the challenge we're trying to solve. Then we'll introduce our two main players and pit them against each other head to head. After that, we'll walk through some real-world examples, like when would you actually use one over the other? And finally, we'll wrap it all up with the key takeaways you need to make the right call for your own projects. All right, so before we jump into the solutions, let's get really clear on the problem itself. Why is this whole sharing storage thing between a bunch of servers such a big deal in the cloud anyway? I mean, have you ever been in a spot where you need a bunch of EC2 instances to all read and write from the exact same storage at the same time? If you're building anything that needs to be highly available or, scale out, then yeah, you've definitely run into this. Think about a WordPress site with a fleet of web servers or a clustered database. They all need to see the exact same data instantly. Okay, so here's the classic setup. An elastic block store, or EBS volume, it's basically like a virtual hard drive that you plug into a single server. It's super fast, it's direct, but it's a one-to-one relationship. And right there, that's your bottleneck. It creates a single point of failure and makes it really tough to scale out. So how does AWS get us around this problem? Well, they've got two very different solutions for this whole shared access challenge. First up, let's talk more about EBS. Like we said, it's block-level storage. The best way to think about it is like someone handing your server a raw, unformatted hard drive. The server gets total control over every single block of data. And that's why it's incredibly fast, screaming fast, and perfect for things like databases that need the absolute lowest latency possible. But what happens when you need more than just one instance to access that super high-performance drive? Well, this is where the standard model gets a pretty neat upgrade. And that feature is called EBS Multi-Attach. Now, this is super important. Multi-Attach isn't some brand new product. It's a special feature you can turn on for the high-performance EBS volumes. What it does is let a small group, up to 16 instances, all connect to that one single volume. But here's the catch. They all have to be in the exact same availability zone. This is what we call block-level sharing. Now, for our second contender, EFS. And EFS is a whole different animal. It's a fully managed file system. Forget the raw hard drive analogy. This is more like a massive cloud-native network drive. An NAS, if you will. It's built from the ground up to be accessed by potentially thousands of servers all at once from anywhere across an entire region. Okay, so now that we've met our two contenders, let's put them side by side. Because understanding these core differences, that's the real key to picking the right tool for the job. And boom, right away, we see the first major dividing line. With EBS Multi-Attach, you are locked into a single availability zone. Now, that's okay for some very specific clustered apps, but it's a total deal breaker if you're aiming for true multi-AZ high availability. EFS, on the other hand, is built for regional resilience right out of the gate. It just works across AZs. Next up, let's talk about scalability, or how you handle growth. With EBS, you're in the business of capacity planning. You have to decide your storage size and your performance, your IOPS, right up front. You provision it. EFS, it's completely elastic. You just throw files at it and it grows. You delete files and it shrinks. You only ever pay for exactly what you're using. No guesswork, no capacity planning. Now, this slide is really interesting because it gets into the operational burden, how much work you have to do. EFS is a fully managed service. AWS handles pretty much everything. With EBS Multi-Attach, though, AWS just hands you a raw block device. You are on the hook for putting a file system on it and, most importantly, for managing how all those servers write to it without stepping on each other's toes. And that management responsibility brings us to what is, without a doubt, the single most important warning in this entire explainer. So please listen up. If you just slap a standard file system, like ext4 or XFS, onto a multi-attach volume, and you let multiple servers try to write to it at the same time, you will corrupt your data. It's not a maybe, it's a will. Think of it like two people trying to write on the exact same line in a notebook at the exact same time. You just get gibberish. You absolutely must use a special cluster-aware file system that knows how to manage all that traffic. Seriously, this isn't a friendly suggestion. It is a hard requirement if you care about your data's integrity. So this table really just puts it all together in one nice view. Block versus file. Up to 16 instances in one AZ versus potentially thousands across a whole region. Provisioned pricing versus a pay-as-you-go model. As you can see, these are fundamentally different approaches to storage. Okay, so with those differences crystal clear, let's get practical. Let's talk about the real world. When do these different features actually push you to choose one service over the other? You're going to find yourself leaning towards EBS Multi-Attach when you have an application that is specifically built for this kind of setup. We're talking about things like high-performance computing clusters or big, clustered database systems, think Oracle RAC, that already have the built-in smarts to manage shared block storage safely. In these scenarios, raw, low-latency performance is king, and that's what EBS Multi-Attach delivers. Now, for pretty much everything else, EFS is going to be the simpler, more resilient, and frankly, the safer choice. If you just need a shared file system for a bunch of web servers or for your containers running on EKS or ECS, maybe you're doing a lift and shift of an enterprise app or running big data jobs, EFS gives you a super straightforward, scalable solution without any of those scary data corruption pitfalls we just talked about.
All right, let's wrap this up and bring it all home. What are the key things you really need to remember from all this?
You know, this quote from an AWS expert really just hits the nail on the head. You can't just do an apples-to-apples comparison on the price per gigabyte. That's not the point. You've got to look at the whole picture. Do you need that multi-AZ durability? How much management are you willing to take on? And most importantly, what does your application actually need to function correctly? Ultimately, it really just boils down to this one question. Is your number one priority raw, blazing fast performance in a single zone for a very specific type of application? Or is it managed flexibility and resilience across many zones? If you need that absolute top-tier, low-latency block performance for a specialized, cluster-aware app in one AZ, EBS Multi-Attach is your tool. But if what you need is a simple, flexible, and resilient file system that just works across your entire region for most common workloads, EFS is almost always going to be the right answer. And trust me, making this choice correctly at the start of your project will save you a world of headaches and potentially your data down the road.